So recently I read a book called Factfulness, and in this book it talks about there's four levels of, I guess you can say, living conditions and levels of wealth in the world. And they showed a graph in this book, and they said that 1 billion out of the 7 billion people on this planet are living in conditions the way we are in Western society, which is the top level. That's the best level of living in terms of health, care, in terms of excess wealth, in terms of comfort, in terms of what you have, access to food, access to water, all those kinds of things. So when you think about it, in Western society, 1 billion people in that Western society out of 7 billion in the planet are living, in the best conditions in the world. Those 9 months I spent in Cambodia, obviously my living conditions were significantly lower. And sometimes that plays with your head a little bit. You think to yourself, what if I get sick? You ask these questions. If you're in Australia and you get sick, it's so easy to go to the hospital, and you got some of the best healthcare in the world. But in a rural village in the middle of in Cambodia, countryside Cambodia, all it takes is one mosquito bite, and you could be infected with malaria or any other kind of disease for that matter. So that's scary when you think about it. And apart from the living conditions, I mean, the beds and the food that you're eating and all that kind of stuff. Although the food was I found the food to be a lot more healthier than a lot of the things that I eat here. The biggest challenge was having to go from what in our country, in Australia and in the Western world, middle class, which is where I stand, it doesn't seem all that luxurious. But when you compare to the 6 billion other people and how they're living in the world, then you really start to put into perspective. And life here is luxurious, even if you are middle class, and that's just the truth. That's just the hard, cold truth. And recently I've decided to continue on with my journey in Cambodia, and I'll be leaving Sydney soon, in the next 10 days or 12 days. And I am dreading going back to those conditions, back to that thin mattress on the floor, and back to that heat, and back to those living conditions. And I noticed one thing that's tough is when you know of better conditions and you step down and you live in conditions that are less than what you know. That's so challenging. That's probably one of the most challenging things. I've heard a story of in New York City there's a big problem with homeless people, and those who have been to New York, I haven't personally, but those who have can probably vouch for my claims and what I've heard. And I've heard that a lot of these people who are homeless, they were once multi-millionaire stockbrokers, or people who are ultra successful financially, and they either lost it in a recession, or through other things. And I look at that and I think to myself, going from a life of multi-million-dollar wealth down to being homeless, that would be extremely tough, only because what you're missing out on. It's I guess it's easy for someone who has been born and raised through conditions that are not as good as what we experience in the West, for them to not know any better. and that I would say, going from this level down, and going from this level down, it doesn't matter how far down you go, it's always so difficult. And I kind of when I was in Cambodia, I kind of eased my way into it. The first 8 months was in a studio apartment, but it was nothing like what I had here. And then obviously in the last few weeks I was in the village, and their conditions that most of us can't even comprehend here. So that's one thing. Now that I've decided to go back and continue on my journey there, it's one thing I'm dreading, to be honest, the living conditions, and going from this luxurious life back down to that. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge, and of course I'm up for it, and of course it teaches me so much. But yeah, at the same time there is reluctance, and it's gonna come with a lot of challenges, and I guess having a bit of a taste for it already, and then coming back to Australia so soon, it's really put it into perspective, just how much we have here. And then I've come back here and I just appreciate this luxury and this order, and the safety and the security that you have here. And yeah, it's kind of like I've rewired my brain in a way. So yeah, going back is going to be a bit of a struggle, and just because I've been taking my hot showers here, and you don't have that in the village. I've been sleeping on a bed, so thick, and over there it's a mattress this thin on the floor, and it's really difficult to adjust. But I'm looking forward to going back, and the next step is going to teach me a lot of things, and hopefully I can continue to rewire my brain and rewire my mind, and there's so many benefits with doing that. I feel like I've come back a completely different person. So yeah, I'll keep you posted, and I'll be back into the village soon, and I'll be posting content about that. And yeah, hopefully we can get this IT center built while I'm there, and there'll be some more adventures to come, so stay tuned.